The heat in the Arizona desert doesn't just burn, it has weight. It presses down on you. David slammed his hand against the steering wheel. Smoke, thick, white, and smelling of burnt syrup, was pouring from the hood of his Ford Taurus. He was on Route 163, that stretch of asphalt that cuts through the Navajo Nation like a scar. Monument Valley loomed in the distance, giant red monoliths that looked like tombstones against the dying sun. "Come on, not now," David pleaded. He checked his phone. No service. He was 20 miles from Kayenta. Walking wasn't an option, not with the temperature dropping as the sun vanished. The desert has a bipolar personality. It cooks you in the day and freezes you at night. David stayed in the car. He locked the doors. He'd wait for a patrol car. By 10 p.m., the moon was up, painting the desert in shades of bone white and charcoal black. That's when he heard it. Tap, tap, tap. It was a polite, rhythmic knocking on the rear passenger window. David jumped, his heart hammering against his ribs. He turned around. The window was dusty, reflecting the moonlight. There was no one there. "Hello?" he called out, his voice shaking. Nothing but the wind whistling through the sagebrush. He turned back to the front, trying to calm his breathing. It was just a bug, he told himself, a big moth hitting the glass. Then came the whistle. It wasn't a melody, it was a high-pitched sliding sound, like a flute made of bone. It came from the scrubland to his left, and then an answer, a low guttural growl from the right. They were communicating. David shrank down in his seat. He remembered the stories his college roommate who grew up in New Mexico had told him. If you're on the reservation and you hear something strange, you don't look, you don't listen, and you never, ever invite it in. Skinwalkers. "Stop it, Dave. You're a grown man," he whispered. "David?" The voice stopped his heart cold. It came from outside the driver's side door, soft, confused. It was Sarah, his wife. "David, let me in. It's cold out here." David's hand moved to the door handle instinctively. Sarah? How could Sarah be here? She was back in Chicago. He looked at the window. Standing just beyond the glass was a woman. She wore Sarah's favorite blue dress. She had Sarah's long, dark hair. But she was too tall. Her limbs were elongated, stretching unnaturally, and she wasn't standing on the ground. She was hovering slightly, her feet dangling inches above the sand. "David, open the door," the thing mimicked. The voice was perfect, but the intonation was wrong. It sounded like a recording being played at the wrong speed. David pulled his hand back as if the door handle were red hot. "You're not Sarah," he whimpered. The thing outside tilted its head. The movement was sharp, like a bird's twitch. It smiled, but the smile didn't stop at the cheeks. It kept widening, splitting the face further than skin should allow, revealing too many teeth. "Not Sarah?" it repeated, mocking him. "Not Sarah. Open the door." David scrambled over the center console into the passenger seat, trying to put distance between him and the creature. The thing raised a hand. Its fingers were long, tipped with blackened claws. It tapped the glass again. Tap, tap, tap. Suddenly, the creature dropped to all fours. In a blur of motion that the human eye couldn't track, it scampered around the front of the car to the passenger side. David screamed and scrambled back to the driver's seat. The creature was now staring at him through the windshield. It had changed. It was no longer pretending to be Sarah. It was a coyote, huge and mangy, with patches of fur missing, but it had human hands, and it had human eyes. Blue eyes. David's eyes. It reared up on its hind legs and slammed its human palms against the windshield. The glass cracked. Crack! David frantically searched for a weapon, a tire iron, anything. He found a pen in the glove box. Useless. The creature didn't attack, it just watched him. It leaned in close to the glass, fogging it up with its breath. Then it spoke again. But this time it didn't use Sarah's voice, it used David's own voice. "Please," the creature mimicked, the sound David had made when the car broke down. It was laughing at him. Suddenly, headlights swept across the desert. A truck was coming down the highway. David felt a surge of hope. He laid on the horn. Beep, beep. The creature hissed, a sound like meat sizzling on a grill, and dropped to all fours, vanishing into the darkness of the ravine. The truck slowed down and pulled over behind David's car. It was an old pickup. An older Navajo man stepped out, holding a flashlight. David threw the door open and stumbled onto the asphalt. "Help! There was something, a coyote, but it wasn't a coyote." The old man didn't look surprised. He didn't look at David. He looked at the tracks in the sand around the car. He looked at the cracked windshield. "Get in my truck," the old man said sternly. "Leave the car." "But my stuff." "Get in." David didn't argue. He climbed into the passenger seat of the pickup. The old man got in and immediately made a U-turn, driving away from the broken Ford. They drove in silence for 10 minutes. David was shaking, his adrenaline crashing. "What was that?" David asked, his voice trembling. The old man stared straight ahead. "You know what it was. We don't say its name. To name it is to give it power." David nodded, closing his eyes. He was safe. He was going to a town. He looked at the old man to thank him. The dashboard lights cast a dim green glow on the driver's face. David noticed something. The old man's hands were gripping the steering wheel, but the knuckles were backward. The hands were upside down. He looked up at the man's face. The skin on his neck was loose, like a suit that didn't quite fit. The driver turned to look at David. His eyes were milky white. "We don't say its name," the driver said, but the voice wasn't the old man's. It was Sarah's voice. The truck headlights turned off, plunging them into absolute darkness at 60 miles per hour. And then the screaming began.
The story ends here, but the fear remains. If you want to survive the night, hit that subscribe button. And remember, don't look under your bed tonight.